Now, what is BetWatch? I want to answer that question in a holistic way that details not only why we came up with BetWatch, but also what problems we were trying to solve with it. I want to explain the technologies we've developed it on, as well as where we see the product going, as there is a whole new analytical and social media element that we believe explores some interesting avenues that were unavailable to us when we initially developed BetWatch 1.0. We've also decided to make this a solution that was designed specifically for the sports betting industry, available to esports industry players as well. BetWatch is a risk management customer engagement solution that also has the ability to spot problematic gamblers as well as fraud. With BetWatch, we also hope to increase cross-selling and upselling opportunities, reducing customer churn, increasing revenue per customer, identifying the true value of each customer, understanding the customer's buying journey, as well as novelty detection. Although BetWatch was initially developed with the SAP Startup Focus Group, we are now developing BetWatch on several different new software platforms, including Datamere, ITRS, where we are. BetWatch segments patrons into two types: profitable and not profitable. The solution attempts to understand a bettor's gambling habits and, more importantly, how these habits affect the sportsbook's fiscal bottom line. BetWatch has 5 separate dashboards: performance dashboard, upcoming events, model metrics, customer metrics, and customer history. We believe once the sportsbook understands its customers' betting patterns, they will be able to understand the risk associated with each and every bet the customers take on wagers. We believe once the sportsbook understands its customers' betting patterns, they will be able to understand the risk associated with each and every bet they take wagers on. The sportsbook will also know what types of marketing offers are best for that customer. Personalization was a big word for marketers a few years ago. Today it seems to be a customer experience management, or CEM, but understanding what customers like to bet on would be an example of both these concepts. With BetWatch, business events are processed in real time, enabling the sportsbook to make faster and more informed decisions about the entire spectrum of the business. This enables the most effective and strategic outcomes with regards to risk management, customer engagement, problematic customers, and marketing. The customer history dashboard contains all of the information about one particular customer, including the customer's ROI, his or her turnover, their profit, their average stake, and average odds. This also includes a tree map which contains each bet of that particular customer. The green is a winning bet for the sportsbook, a red is a winning bet for the customer. Here you can see this customer is interested in playing the under-over on soccer, and as you can see, he likes the Premier League in the UK, the Italian League, as well as the German Bundesliga and League One in Spain. BetWatch was initially powered by SAP HANA. The input metrics for clustering customers were lead time, mid-stake, which is the medium stake that a customer wagers, mid-odds, the median odds that a customer takes when wagering, turnover, the total amount they spent, return, ROI, and bet type count, which is the number of unique bet types the customer has wagered on. With this particular data set, what we discovered was there was only one cluster that the sportsbook was actually making money on. Cluster 0, 1, 2, 3 were all ROI positive for the customers. So this sportsbook was actually not in a good position, and they could have used BetWatch. Armed with this information, the sportsbook was able to understand what their segments looked like. Cluster 0 was small but early bettors who were somewhat focused on sport type, but they were comfortable taking different bet types. We believe the sportsbook should be encouraging wagers from this group. Cluster 1 was moderate-sized early bettors who bet on all types of offering and on most sports types. These, we believe, were potential arbitrageurs. Cluster 2 was mid-sized early bettors who bet on all bet types and most sports types. This was a big danger segment for the sportsbook, and we believe they should keep a very close eye on bettors who were in this group. Cluster 3, these were the biggest bettors, specializing on a few bet types and sports types with a long lead time on wagers. These also were people the sportsbook needed to keep a very close eye on. Cluster number 4, these were small, apparently recreational punters who bet on anything and most bet types. So these were also ones that were very good for the sports book, and this was the segment that was their most profitable. So what the sportsbook should be doing with these is learning more about them, learning more about their behavior, what they like to bet on, and basically using that information to send them marketing offers that were particularly interesting to them. The customer metrics screen gives the sportsbook the ability to drill down into each particular gambler. Each bubble plot can be drilled down into to see a particular gambler's bets and ROI and profit stake, etc., etc. BetWatch 2.0. Now, I want to take a step back and explain why we developed BetWatch in the first place. To be quite frank, we saw a need. The margins that a sportsbook operates under are minuscule, and they are getting tighter and tighter every year as competition explodes. The biggest market player in this business is Betfair, and they have about 4% of the market. You basically need $50,000 to open up a sportsbook in the Philippines. In light of this, sportsbooks need to be smarter about how they deal with their customers, and more particularly with the markets they offer. The smallest mistake in price setting or non-attentiveness to markets can result in large unexpected losses. With margins as tight as they are, any mistake that can be avoided should be. Developing an approach that ensures the right risk is being accepted should also be fostered. Currently, sportsbooks aren't focused on the kind of automated approach that BetWatch can deliver. Traditionally, bookmaking is a very ego-driven business, abounding with all kinds of opinion as to what is going to happen. It is also an industry with bad customer service, i.e., winning customers are often unwelcome and more often than not shown the door. The advent of BetWatch came about to empower a sportsbook with the ability to take an approach that all businesses welcome, as long as it is on the terms of the sportsbook. This approach has the added advantage of being a public relations winner for the operation, as they become known as a place where any customer is welcome rather than a place where someone's business is unwanted. Once you understand the customer, their betting preferences, their gambling skills, how much money they like to bet, who they like to bet on, what bets they prefer to place, etc., etc., the truly fun analytics and marketing can occur. Now let me quickly explain how a sportsbook makes its money. I'm sure most of you know, but this is an important element to understand, as much of BetWatch attempts to do is give the sportsbook a better edge against its clientele, an edge that can hopefully manipulate the buyers into buying particular bets or giving the sportsbook the information it needs to refuse other bets that might be detrimental to the bottom line. A sportsbook puts out odds that a host will generate an even amount of money coming in on both sides of the bet. Then they take out what is known as the vig. A good bookmaker will set odds so they appear enticing to both sides of a bet. If Manchester City plays Stoke in the Premier League, the bookies want an equal amount of action on both clubs, the better to spread risk. If more money than expected goes in on Stoke as the game time approaches, bookies will adjust the odds to make Stoke less attractive and Manchester City more so, ensuring the money pool remains equitable. In this example, if the line is plus 200, a player bets 100 to win 200 on one underdog, whereas someone who bets on the favorite will have to bet $250 to win 100. Sportsbooks make money by charging a 4 to 5% vig on all winning bets, while also keeping all of the losers' bets. A sportsbook must also cater to its own pool of players and adjust odds accordingly, and this is where BetWatch can be a big help. But as you'll see here, the margins for sportsbooks are pretty small, and what we wanted to do with the new and improved BetWatch was add a real-time element that would also add some risk management capabilities that could, potentially, trigger warnings that BetWatch determined were smart gamblers. BetWatch is also a risk management engine. Within BetWatch, there is a scoring model for new customers. The purpose of these models is for the sportsbook to have an intimate understanding of its clientele so that they know how aggressively they should allow a customer to place their desired bets. Traditional logic only allows for profiling after a certain number of bets, but by that time it may be too late, as a punter could already be far ahead of the game by the time the sportsbook gets a full picture of the bettor's behavior. BetWatch has developed a model that scores a customer after his or her initial wagers or time with the business. The sportsbook then has the knowledge it needs to intervene in the relationship by using a more informed and scientific approach than it would otherwise have. It's simply a situation in which if a bettor bets very early, let's say long before the game starts, and the odds that the bettor accepts actually moves in his or her favor, he would be considered a good gambler. If he does this a few times, then the sportsbook will know that he's someone they should keep a close eye on and certainly not offer many bonus offers. Going back to the how U.S. sportsbooks make money slide, if the odds drift down to plus 175 by the time the game starts, then either the bettor got lucky or perhaps he is a very smart bettor. If he does this repeatedly, then he's probably someone who's going to consistently beat you, and he's someone whose business you don't really want, so you could cut him off, as many sportsbooks do. But knowing his skill level, potentially on the very first bet, would put the sportsbook at a huge advantage. Conversely, you can also track gamblers who aren't very good, as the ones who have the odds move against them will be in a not so good position and no hedging can occur. Overall, the powerful thing about BetWatch is you have complete visibility on your customers, down to the bet type level. You can use this knowledge to actually set your odds, because if you know how many bettors are fans of Manchester City and how many bettors are fans of Stoke, you'll have a good idea on the demand of both sides of that bet. So that might allow you to adjust the odds that might put you in a better position than the bookmaker down the street. Now, if you remember, Cluster 2 was a danger segment. The gamblers had actually won $3.7 million on their bets, so BetWatch allows the sportsbook to set up a level of comfort. The sportsbook could theoretically put $10,000 at risk, and once the gamblers from Cluster 2 start making their bets, as long as they don't exceed that threshold, bets will be allowed to continue coming in. However, if they do exceed that threshold, then alerts can be sent to the risk management department, and the risk management department can decide whether it wants to take the bets, reject the bets, or take the bets partially. Multi-leg betting is becoming very popular around the world, especially in Africa, where bettors seem to like taking a flyer on low-cost, high-profit potential. Sportsbooks there aren't like sportsbook in the US or Europe, where customers like to sit with online balances and can move money into and out of their accounts via their bank account or credit cards. Sportsbooks in Africa have physical stores, and the bettors like to cash in their ticket at the end of the day. So one example I wanted to bring up was the UFC fight, in which 10 out of 11 matches were won by long shots. The sportsbook actually ended up losing $1 million, and it was only to a few gamblers. But the underdogs went 10-1, and the result parlay bets in which gamblers bet between $1 and $5 on all underdogs hit big. This is a spreadsheet showing the payouts for that particular parlay bet. As you will notice, as each leg comes up, the sportsbook. So, as you will notice, by leg 6 and leg 7, things start to go exponential. By leg 10, there was a massive payout of $28,000 when Frank Mir won at 2-1. So what the sportsbook could have done had it had BetWatch was hedge its positions in the last 3 fights. They could have improved the odds on the Cesar Ferreira match, and when that one came in and the underdog lost, they could have then raised the odds on Edson Barboza match as well as the Antonio Silva match. So BetWatch would have given them the ability to alter the odds rapidly as these long shots were coming in. Now, not every UFC bout is going to be won by 10 straight long shots, but this was a rare example in which so many long shots did win. But if you only had a few long shots coming up and winning, then BetWatch would be able to give you the quantifiable risk amount on each leg, so that as these legs come in, adjustments can be made on the favorites or the long shots. And if adjustments are actually made on the favorites, then the sportsbook can go out into the market, offer great odds, and probably cover themselves so they wouldn't be left with a $1 million hole like this particular sportsbook was when Antonio Silva was beaten in the last match. Now, the quickest and most effective way to connect with people today is through social media. Real-time odds are imperative for sportsbook customers, so why not connect with them via their social media channels? Social media interactions are exceptionally important to BetWatch as well, and this is not just a customer service channel, but also a marketing channel. The instant feedback a company can get is also priceless. Contextual is a big word being thrown around in marketing circles these days, and BetWatch will contain a social media element that can pull social feeds from Facebook, Twitter, WeChat, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., etc. Contextual is a big word being thrown around in marketing circles these days, and BetWatch will contain a social media element that can pull social feeds from Facebook, Twitter, WeChat, Snapchat, as well as many other social media platforms. This will allow the sportsbook to understand a customer's activity on his or her various social media sites. This gives the sportsbook highly personalized information about a customer, which can help with tailored and relative marketing offers. For example, if a customer happens to like Manchester United's Facebook page or fires off a congratulatory tweet about one of their Champions League victories, BetWatch has the power to not only send out a particular marketing offer for that preferred team, but also an offer for a bet type that the sportsbook knows the punter consistently loses on. We believe this gives the sportsbook an added competitive advantage because it can afford because it then because it can then afford to make more generous offers than their competitors, and these offers are far more likely to be used, which helps create a virtuous cycle of offering and uptake, thereby increasing a customer's loyalty. It's a win-win situation all around. For the sportsbook, the fact that the offer is statistically unlikely to be a winning bet for them makes it more profitable for the sportsbook's bottom line. Social customer service will allow a sportsbook to create personalized customer service responses that can be pushed out to social channels with the same quality it does on other channels. The sportsbook can now listen and respond to the right conversation, route cases to the right person, easily see one view of the customer including contact details, recent history, and recent cases, as well as respond to social posts right in the sportsbook agent's console. For sportsbooks, for sportsbooks, Twitter was actually the most important channel for connecting to customers, with 89% of all the mentions across the sportsbook industry. Now, these tweets can be anything from stories about upcoming sporting events, but if a customer gives the sportsbook their Twitter handle, the sportsbook can glean an enormous amount of information about them. Twitter's instant messaging service can also provide direct offers to customers, and this data can be sent back to BetWatch and updated in almost real time. Using the UFC example above, BetWatch can provide the sportsbook with a list of users who like to bet on UFC matches, and as the legs of the bets come in, the sportsbook could tweet out private VIP offers to its most important customers. Snapchat's self-destructing odds bets is an interesting example of how one sportsbook used the popular platform to provide users with bets that had to be used quickly or they would expire. BetWatch, Betfair offered better than market odds to their Snapchat followers, but BetWatch could take this concept to a whole new level. The offer was extended in Snapchat's offer in Snapchat's Premier League offer. The offer was extended to anyone following the company's official Snapchat account, Betfair Official, during the Chelsea versus Everton and Crystal Palace versus Manchester United Premier League fixtures. Betfair used this feature to send images that contained a custom URL, giving users just a few seconds to read it and access the offer. The first 500 customers to place a bet on the URL would benefit from Betfair's enhanced odds. Once again, this could be a great way to reduce risk on events, as only those people who like to bet on the UFC favorites would be given the offer. Facebook is also a great platform to instantly connect with one's fans. Facebook bots can also be used to provide users with access to betting odds, which could once again be more generous than other sportsbooks' odds if need be. Although gambling is not allowed in markets in China, WeChat could be used outside of China in places like Macau, Hong Kong, and throughout the ASEAN region to connect with Chinese-speaking sports bettors. Weibo is also a platform that is preferred by the Chinese and could be used to connect with Chinese-speaking gamblers outside of China. Now, Twitch is a platform for gamers, a community where people can live stream their game playing. And esports is not just something that geeks play in darkened rooms anymore. They're played in darkened stadiums with thousands of people watching them, with online audiences in the tens of millions. Recently, there was a Worlds Collide Poker Hearthstone tournament in which top players of Hearthstone played top poker players. esports is now becoming a sport that can be bet on as well. Games like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, StarCraft, Dota, FIFA 16, and Halo are all played by professional teams for millions of dollars in prize money. YouTube, which is owned obviously by Google, is another player in the esports and live streaming space.